Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Friday, June 19th, 2020. Today I'm going to discuss more of the return of sports post-COVID. The Celebrity Watch Party will recap last night's episode. We'll recap this morning's Kbo games and look ahead to this weekend. We'll give you an update on the leaderboard at the Heritage Classic, RBC Heritage. Soccer will recap the games from yesterday and look ahead to today and the weekend's games. NASCAR will make picks for the Truck, Xfinity, and Cup Series races. And they'll do my 2014 Top 10 Nhl Players and Games. All right, we'll start with some breaking news that's just broke. The NCAA is banning championship events from being played in states where the Confederate flag has a prominent presence. So this is a bold move by the NCAA. This obviously comes in the wake of all the protests and the George Floyd, the Breonna Taylor, all these unfortunate incidents that we've had throughout the country over the last month. And this is going to become a trend, and you'll see more like leagues and companies and things make changes because they feel that it's important for their brands. Like you saw NASCAR ban the Confederate flag. Now you just saw the NCAA ban championships from being played in states that have a high presence of the Confederate flag. You're seeing Aunt Jemima changing the name of its syrup. You're seeing all these other companies and other things around the world making changes. I saw on the news earlier today that a high school in New Jersey is changing its name. The Woodrow Wilson High School in Camden is changing its name. So don't be surprised if this continues in terms of changing names and a lot of changes in the wake of all this tragic things going on in our country. And COVID-related news, 5 players and 3 staff members have tested positive for the virus at Phillies camp in Florida. That was reported by NBC Sports Philadelphia. And the good news is that those 8 people are asymptomatic, so they should be okay. And like I said, there's going to be more cases because there's more tests. And I've said this on the podcast literally the last couple weeks that these governors, Republican or Democrat, they really care about the dropping in hospitalizations and patients and hospital beds. Like, those are the numbers that they care about that are going down, because the other positive cases are, for the most part, are asymptomatic. So that's why they care more about those ones that are not well and are obviously in hospitals. Anything else I would like to hit on before I move on? The SEC wants a new Mississippi flag as the commissioner, Greg Sankey, says the conference will consider withholding title games from the state if it doesn't change flag. See, there's another thing related in that news of the country being in unrest that I saw here. So, yeah, a lot of things in the wake of the unrest in the country and COVID and a lot of other things going on. And then baseball yet again has egg on its face, as the owners are not happy over 10 games of a difference between what they want and the players want. And that is just absolutely nuts. John Gambadoro of 98.7 FM in Phoenix said that the negotiations are over. There will be no more. It's either 40, 50 games or no season. And that's something I'm not buying until or unless that comes from Jeff Passan. Jeff Passan's the best reporter in baseball, the second best reporter in sports behind Adrian Wojnarowski, in my opinion. And then Gambadoro writes to me on Twitter, I believe I've been out of head of this every step of the way, sometimes by weeks. I just think this is just a cocky reporter that thinks he's all that, and I need to see it to believe it if he's right. And I do not think he'll be right. I trust way more people than Gambadoro. Gambadoro is just a nobody in the media. Nobody knows who he is except for people in Arizona, really. And I just think he's flat out wrong here. And then Jim Bowden, who is a member of the Sirius XM and The Athletic, and he's a talk show host. And he writes, calm patience, compromise. When? July 19th, opening day. Where? A ballpark near you. How many? Games between 60 and 70. Why? Because the fans deserve it. And Bowden really has been half glass full this whole time. And Bowden's really good at reporting. But there's been things he was wrong about before. Like, he thought that Manny Machado was going to be on the Yankees. I mean, a lot of people did. Let's be honest. Like, a lot of people got that one wrong. Other than Andy Martino. And that's really when Andy Martino made a name for himself by being like the only person to say the Yankees aren't in on Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. He turned out to be right. And then he turned out to be right again when he said the Yankees are all in on Garrett Cole, and they wound up signing him, and he was right about that. And Andy Martino's been very on the side of there's going to be a season. And he's the one that's saying that he thinks that they're going to go to the March 26th agreement. But the caveat there is that Manfred has a right to change it up a little bit. And one more COVID-related thing. Dr. Anthony Fauci says that football may not happen this year. Anthony Fauci has been horrible this whole time throughout the pandemic. He was the one that also said that sports weren't going to come back until 2021. He was wrong. NASCAR's back. Golf's back. Baseball could very well be back. Basketball and hockey are coming back. There's no doubt the NFL is coming back. I am so positive. Like, at this point, I trust Roger Goodell more than I trust Anthony Fauci. And just like my buddy James Sellison said, he's fake news. Okay, let's move on. We'll go over to Kbo Scores now and look ahead to the games for the weekend. So, interesting results last night, obviously, and we will get right to them. So, KT over Latte 9-8, Kia over Samsung 5-4, NC over Hanwha 3-1, Doosan over LG 18-10, Kaiwoom over SK 2-1. Tomorrow, all games at 4 o'clock a.m. Eastern, which is 5 o'clock p.m. in Korea. Latte KT, Hanwha NC, SK Kaiwoom, Samsung Kia, and Doosan LG. And then Sunday, all games at 4 o'clock a.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock p.m. Korean time. Hanwha and the Dinos, Doosan and LG Twins, SK and Kaiwoom, the Samsung Lions, and Kia, and then Latte in KT. So, should be a fun weekend in the KBO. Standings very quickly. The Dinos are 27-11. LG's 25-14, so they're 2.5 back. of the Dinos. Doosan's 23-16. They're 2 back of LG. Kaiwoom's 23-17. They're a half game back of Doosan, 1 back in the loss column. 22-17 is Kia. They're a half game back of Kaiwoom, tied in the loss column. Latte's 19-20, so they're back under 500. They are 3 back of Kia. Samsung is 19-21. They're a half game back of Latte, 1 back in the loss column. KT 17-22. They are a game and a half back of Samsung, 1 back in the loss column. SK's 12-27. They're 5 back of KT, and Hanwha is 9-31, and they are 3.5 back of SK. Now I'm going to go over the leaderboard for the RBC Heritage. It's been a fun tournament so far. My pick of Justin Rose as of yesterday was not in a good spot. So as of right now, your leader is Webb Simpson. In second place, you have Bryson DeChambeau and Corey Connors. In fourth place, you have Ryan Palmer. In fifth place, you have Abraham Anser. Sixth place is a tie between Dylan Fratelli. You got Windham Clark. You have Dustin Johnson and Tyler Duncan. Also, tied with those guys, it's just updating as I speak, Jonathan Vegas, Sam Ryder, and Mackenzie Hughes. Among notables on the board, Justin Rose, my pick, is tied for 27th with a bunch of people. Gary Woodland's also in that tie. Justin Thomas is in a tie in 40th, along with Brooks Koepka and last week's winner, Daniel Berger. And John Rahm, you have in that 40th place tie as well. In the big tie for 56th place, you have Colin Morikawa, who some people were high on before the tournament. Tied for 72nd, Wesley Bryan's in there. You have Zach Johnson in there. Bubba Watson's in there. In the tie for 89th, Shane Lowry's in there. Patrick Reed's in there. Sergio Garcia's in there. And then in the tie for 107th, you have Jason Day, who's been in a huge funk. In the tie for 117th, you have Rory McIlroy, who has a +1 right now. That's very disappointing for somebody that was the favorite. Xander Schauffele is in the 117th tie. In the 131st tie, you have a lot of names in there as well, including Brandt Snecker. Glenn Day's in the tie for 138th. And in the tie for 131 is Hideki Matsuyama, who folks were high on before the start of this tournament. Now I'm going to go over the soccer games from yesterday, and we'll look ahead to today's games as well as the games that will be going on for the rest of the weekend. We'll start with Bundesliga because there were actually games. Actually, no, there weren't games yesterday. It was La Liga that had games yesterday. Alaves over Real Sociedad 2-0, and Real Madrid over Valencia 3-0. 3 games today, Mallorca and Leganes. Should be an interesting game between those two teams. Either of those teams are very good. I'm going to go with the draw there. Granada and Villarreal. Okay game. Two of the top 10 teams. Kind of like the tie there as well. And then Sevilla and Barcelona. Is there any doubt? Come on. Barcelona has to be the pick. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, you have Espanyol and Levante. I'm going to go with Levante. The Athletic Club against Real Betis. I'm going to go with the draw. Getafe and Eibar. I got to go with Getafe. And Atletico Madrid and Valladolid. I'm going to go with Atletico Madrid there. Sunday, you have 3 games. Celta Vigo and Alaves. Valencia and Osasuna. And Real Sociedad against Real Madrid at 4 o'clock Eastern. So, Celta Vigo and Alaves is 8 o'clock Eastern on Sunday morning. I am going to take Alaves in that matchup, although I think there's a chance that's a draw. Valencia and Osasuna. I am going to go with Valencia. And then Real Sociedad and Real Madrid. I've got to go with Real Madrid. That's tough picking against Real Madrid. And then we'll obviously recap these games and look ahead to Monday on Monday's podcast. We have Premier League today. 1 o'clock, you have Norwich City against Southampton. I'm going to go with Southampton here. Norwich City's the worst team in the Premier League. From a point standpoint, I'm going to go with Southampton. Tottenham and Manchester United, 3:15, no doubt about it. I got to go with Manchester United. 4 games tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Watford and Leicester City. I'm going to go with Leicester City at home. 10 o'clock Eastern Time, Brigden and Arsenal. I kind of like Arsenal here to bounce back and win after that tough loss against the top dogs in Man City. So I really think Arsenal's going to bounce back tomorrow morning. 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, you have West Ham against Wolves. I'm going to go with Wolves here over West Ham, and I think that could be a multi-goal game. Bournemouth against Crystal Palace. I'm going to go Crystal Palace here. They're better than Bournemouth, so I think that would be a good pick, and that game is at 2:45 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Sunday, there are 3 games. You have Newcastle and Sheffield United. I am going to go with Sheffield United here. And that's a 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern game on Sunday. 11:15 a.m. Eastern Time, Aston Villa against Chelsea. I got to go with Chelsea. That's no doubt in my mind. And Aston Villa is one of the worst teams in the Premier League. Everton and Liverpool. I'm going to go with Liverpool. They're the top dog right now in the league, and it's not really that close right now and from a point standpoint, so I got to go with Liverpool over Everton. That is a 2 p.m. Eastern Time game on Sunday afternoon. And now I'm going to do Bundesliga, who has a loaded slate tomorrow. FC Köln against Eintracht Frankfurt. I'm going to go with Eintracht Frankfurt there. Schalke and Wolfsburg. I'm going to go with the draw. I don't feel great about it, but I think that's a close competitive game. And all the games tomorrow are at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Hoffenheim and Union Berlin. I'm going to go with Hoffenheim. RP Leipzig and Dortmund. I'm going to go with the draw. I think this is going to be one of the better games of the weekend in soccer. I think it'll be a great game. I think that the over is in play, so I'm going to go with the draw here. Paderborn and Mönchengladbach. I'm going to go with Mönchengladbach there. Paderborn is the worst team in the Bundesliga. Bayern and SC Freiburg. I am going to go with Bayern, who is the very best team in the Bundesliga right now. Hertha and Leverkusen. I'm going to go with Leverkusen here. Mainz and Werder. I am going to go with the draw here. Neither of these teams are very good. So I like the draw, and I kind of am leaning towards the under there. I don't know the numbers by heart in terms of the over-unders for each of these games, but I would lean under there. And Dusseldorf and Augsburg, last but not least, I'm going to go with another draw here. I don't like either of these teams all that much, and I think that's also a competitive game as well. Now I'm going to preview and predict all the NASCAR races for this weekend. There's two actually, just Xfinity and the Cup. No truck race this week. We'll start with Xfinity. In the front row, you got Justin Haley and Michael Annett. Row 2, Ryan Sieg and Chase Briscoe. Row 3, Noah Gragson and Brandon Jones. Austin Cindric, Jeff Burton. Ross Chaston and Anthony Alfredo. Harrison Burton, Justin Allgaier. Jeffrey Earnhardt and Robbie Lyons II. Brandon Brown, BJ McLeod. Caesar Baccarella and Jesse Little. Jeremy Clements and Brett Moffitt. Gray Gaulding and Riley Herbst. Joe Graff Jr. and Josh Williams. Mike Harmon and Cody Vanderwall. Alex Labb and Vinnie Miller. Joe Nemechek and Chad Fincham. Myatt Snyder and Tommy Joe Martins. Timmy Hill and AJ Allmendinger. Mason Massey and Jeff Green. Matt Mills and John Jackson. And in the back row, Colin Jarrett. All right. In terms of a winner pick, give me somebody who I picked to win the truck race a couple weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, or it could have been nationwide, I don't remember, or Xfinity. I'm going to go with Ross Chaston. He's had some good runs here, and I like how he's been racing lately. So give me Ross Chaston for the win on Saturday night in Talladega under the lights in the Xfinity Series. And then on Sunday, the Cup Series, you have Martin Truex Jr. in the pole, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Jimmy Johnson, Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, Kurt Busch, Alex Bowman, Joey Logano, Clint Boyer, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Matt Kenseth, Ryan Newman, Eric Almirola, Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, Eric Jones, William Byron, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Chris Buescher, John Hunter Nemechek, Matt DiBenedetto, Bubba Wallace, Corey LaJoie, Michael McDowell, Brendan Poole, Cole Custer, Gary Gaudling, BJ McLeod, Ryan Preece, Quinn Houff, Ty Dillon, JJ Yealy, Christopher Bell, Joey Gase, Daniel Suarez, Timmy Hill, Brendan Gaughan, and Garrett Smithley. My pick to win this race on Sunday afternoon is going to be Joey Logano. He's 9-1 on DraftKings as I last checked. He's somebody that's had recent history success here, and I think he's due to break through after some mediocre weeks since the return after the pandemic. And I would not rule out a dark horse of Matt Kenseth, who's starting 13th, who has had some history at this course as well. But I'm going to roll with Joey Logano as my pick to win the Geico 500. Now I'm going to recap last night's episode of Celebrity Watch Party. Was a fun episode last night. I was going to actually recap this in the beginning of the show, but I just went right into sports, but I'm doing it now. So you got the Bankses again, the Osbournes, Raven Simone and her friends, Romeo, Master P, Curtis Stone and Lindsay Price, the Bucks, Steve and Janet Wozniak and JoJo Siwa and her mom. The shows that were included this week in segments: Queer Eye, Don't, the WPLG News TV on Cowboys Catch, $1 Million Listing Los Angeles, Gordon Ramsay's show Uncharted, The Thomas John Experience, and Botched. So, not Murderer's Row of loaded TV shows and news segments and whatnot. This was an episode that I did not thoroughly enjoy all that much. I thought last week's was a lot more fun with the Full House cast members and them showing Fuller House and talking about the NBA and Millionaire and the Jersey Shore. And then 2 weeks ago, they showed Extreme Makeover Home Edition, which I thought was awesome. So, a little disappointed in the episode from last night. And now I'm going to do my 2014 top 10 NHL players. A lot of honorable mentions, a lot of great players this year. League was in a good spot. Drew Doughty, Los Angeles Kings, helped the Kings win the cup. Zdeno Chara, Boston Bruins. This was like the last great year for Zdeno Chara. Shea Weber was on the Predators at the time. Ryan Sutter, Minnesota Wild. Alex Pietrangelo, St. Louis Blues. Nathan MacKinnon, Colorado Avalanche. Erik Karlsson, Ottawa Senators. Ryan McDonough, New York Rangers. Helped lead the Rangers to the final. Patrick Kane, Chicago Blackhawks. Alex Ovechkin, Washington Capitals. Ovechkin's on the top 10 because the Capitals missed the playoffs. It was like yesterday at the NBA. Carmelo Anthony was a top 10 player in the NBA, arguably in 2014. But the Knicks didn't make the playoffs, so he wasn't in there. And that's why Alex Ovechkin was not on the top 10 list, and that's why he got bumped down to honorable mention. And it's not entirely Ovechkin's fault. It's just that the Capitals underachieved that year, and obviously the face of the franchise is Alex Ovechkin, so the media and fans obviously put blame, or too much blame, on the star player. And now my 2014 top 10 NHL players. Number 10, Patrice Bergeron, Boston Bruins. So the Bruins, if I'm not mistaken, won the President's Trophy that year. And Patrice Bergeron was the best player on the team. 9, Semyon Varlamov, Colorado Avalanche. Varlamov was somebody that had a rejuvenant season with the Avalanche that year. And they made the playoffs, and they lost in the first round. 8, Duncan Keith, Chicago Blackhawks. He won the Norris Trophy that year. Obviously was arguably the best defenseman at the league at that point. 7th, Claude Giroux, Philadelphia Flyers. Helped carry the Flyers to the postseason after a slow start. 6th, Jonathan Toews, Chicago Blackhawks. He was the best player on the Blackhawks at the time. It was before Patrick Kane overtook him. And Toews was just awesome in that playoffs and came so darn close to going to their second straight Stanley Cup final, and probably, you could argue, would have beaten the New York Rangers. 5, Ryan Getzlaf, Anaheim Ducks. He was the runner-up in the Hart Trophy that year. The Ducks, was that the year that they made the second round and lost to the Kings? I believe so. 4, Carey Price, Montreal Canadiens. Price is interesting. He obviously helped the Canadiens upset the Bruins and into the conference finals against the Rangers. He had a bad game 1 against the Rangers, and then Chris Kreider ran him over. And a lot of Canadiens fans think they would have won that series had Carey Price not gotten injured. I couldn't disagree with that narrative more. The reason why the Canadiens did not go to the final that year was because simply they did not have much offense. Their offense let them down in that series. And Henrik Lundqvist played out of his mind in that entire 2014 playoffs, for the most part. And Anze Kopitar's my number 3. He obviously was the best player on the team that won the Stanley Cup in 2014 in the Kings. And was, if I'm not mistaken, the Selke winner that year too, unless if it was Jonathan Toews. I know one of those guys won it that year. It might have been Bergeron. Number 2, Henrik Lundqvist, New York Rangers. Helped lead the Rangers to the Stanley Cup final. He was the best player in that series, in my opinion, like just on paper, but he didn't perform the best although he was probably the best player in that series, the previous round against Montreal, as I alluded to. And he outplayed Carey Price in Game 1 before Price got injured. And the backup goalie played really well for Montreal. But like I said, their offense just let them down in that series against the Rangers. And Lundqvist just played out of his mind in that series. Although he had a couple stinkers in the postseason that year. One against Philadelphia, and then one against Montreal. And then I just think he gets too much blame for blowing those leads against the Kings, because one of those games, obviously a bad call changed the game. And obviously Derek and I go back and forth all the time about it. And number 1, Sidney Crosby, Pittsburgh Penguins. You could argue Crosby shouldn't be number 1 because the Penguins choked in the postseason. We're up 3-1 against the Rangers, and Rangers came back and won that series in 2014 to go to the conference final. But Crosby won the Hart Trophy, which is the league MVP, obviously. And then he, the next season, the 14-15 season, he was really good in the beginning of the 14-15 season as well, although they did wind up losing in round 1 against the Rangers the next year. And now my 2014 top NHL games. Honorable mention, Rangers Penguins, May 2nd, Game 1, 3-2. Rangers overtime win on a goal by Derek Brassard. It's funny because the puck went in the net initially, and then they missed it. And then Benoit Pouliot shoots it in the net, and then they credit Brassard with the goal because they noticed that Brassard shot it in the net in the weird spot and nobody caught it, and then they saw it on camera after Pouliot put the puck in the net. And now the top 10. 10, Blackhawks Wild, May 13th, Game 6. 2-1 Chicago overtime win. Patrick Kane, the overtime winner, to send the Blackhawks to the conference final. Number 9, Panthers Capitals, December 6th, a regular season game in the 14-15 season. A 2-1 Panthers shootout win. It went 18 rounds, if I'm not mistaken. 8th, Leafs Red Wings, New Year's Day, Winter Classic, 3-2 Maple Leafs shootout win. The Maple Leafs were not a good team that year. The Red Wings overachieved that year. And that was 2 years before Babcock went to Toronto. So that's kind of ironic that was a classic game and Babcock was still at the Red Wings at the time. 7th, Rangers Kings, June 4th, Game 1, 3-2 Kings overtime win on a goal by Tyler Clifford. Number 6, Canadiens Bruins, May 1st, Game 1, 4-3 Canadiens double overtime win to go up 1-0 in the series. Obviously, if Boston wins that game, they win the series. 5, Canadiens Rangers, May 25th, Game 4, 3-2 Rangers overtime win on a goal by Martin St. Louis. And obviously we know the story about St. Louis, whose mother passed away in during the previous round against the Penguins, and they rallied around that situation, and then they wind up in the final. Number 4, Kings Blackhawks, June 1st, Game 7, 5-4 Kings overtime win on a goal by Alec Martinez, as the Kings advance to the Stanley Cup Final and avoid a choke job of blowing a 3-1 series lead. Number 3, Kings Blackhawks, May 28th, Game 5, 5-4 Blackhawks double overtime win to stave off elimination at home. They'll force a Game 6 back in Los Angeles. 2, Rangers Kings, June 7th, Game 2, 5-4 Kings double overtime win. If I'm not mistaken, I think the goal scorer was Ante Kopitar. That was the game, obviously, that they should have had goaltender interference, and they don't call it. And then the Rangers implode from there. And if the Rangers win that game, it's 1-1 back to the Garden, and then maybe 3-2 after 2. So that series goes 6 or 7 if the Rangers win Game 2. And number 1, Rangers Kings, June 13th, Game 5, 3-2 Los Angeles, double overtime win on a goal by Alec Martinez to win the Stanley Cup. If there's a Stanley Cup clinching goal in overtime, that's the automatic winner. And that's just my rule. That's another game that the Rangers arguably should have had. They had a lead in that game, gave it away. They had leads in games 1, 2, and 5, and if they won at least one of those games, that's a longer series. If they win 2 of those games, maybe they win that series. So that's a huge what-if in recent NHL history, and that is something that Derek and Jeff Maglicetti and a bunch of my Ranger fan friend guests that I have on the show that is brought up a lot. And that's it for the show today. I'll be back on Monday recapping soccer, KBO, NASCAR, and any news that comes out related to COVID or unrest in the world of sports and pop culture. I'll have it for you as well. And starting next week, I'm going to do 2013 tops. So you'll see the top 10 songs on Monday, top 10 movies Tuesday. Wednesday, I'm probably not going to do one. Maybe I'll do my first NHL mock draft of the year, or I'll do another activity. Thursday will be the top 10 artists of 2013, and then the albums will be on Friday. I hope you guys have a great weekend, everybody.